He set out on a gray Thursday morning, under low clouds and cool air that hinted at the coming fall. The Monadnock Sunapee Greenway stretched ahead, nearly 50 miles of northern hardwoods, fern-thick trails and lonely forests, just the way he liked it. An experienced backpacker in his late 40s, David welcomed the solitude of backcountry trails. Crowded routes like the Presidential Range made his skin itch. He didn't want to hear other hikers swapping trail mix recipes or bragging about gear weight. What he wanted was space, trees, the hush of moss beneath his boots, no internet, no phone reception, and no chatter. Only one other came with him, Max, his German shepherd, lean and alert, trained to carry his own small pack. Together they moved quietly along the greenway, where old mill dams held back slow water and loons echoed from forgotten ponds. David took pictures of wildflowers, listened to the breeze sigh through the maple boughs, saw no one. That night he pitched his tent in a low hollow, ringed with spruce and hemlock. No fires were allowed on the trail, but the cold didn't bother him. He filtered water from a nearby stream, ate supper, then zipped himself and Max into his tent. Sleep came fast. The second day took him into deeper woods where the trees leaned in tighter. He passed over Lovewell Mountain and paused at a clearing near the summit. The view was worth the climb. He lingered up there, looking downward at the wilderness below, the shadows deepening between the trees. Max sat beside him, panting quietly, ears always listening. The trail continued. He moved through quiet stands of pine trees, the cool air sharp with resin. Sunlight filtered through the branches in thin, golden slats. He saw a toad the color of bark, a flash of deer tail vanishing into fern, and smelled the sweet rot of mushrooms hidden beneath leaf litter. Somewhere far off, a raven called. David made camp that evening in a narrow grove beside a stream, the canopy above thick enough to blot the sky. He filtered more water, ate in silence, and rubbed at the soreness creeping into his arches. The miles were catching up. Max curled near the tent entrance, nose on paws. Darkness fell. He must have slept an hour or two before waking. Max was growling, low, subvocal, like a deep, primitive warning dragged up from those nights when dogs stood guard beside man's fire. David didn't move. His eyes opened in the black tent, and he listened. At first he heard nothing. Then, something. A rustle in the brush, a soft, dry snap of a twig, and then a whisper, or something that sounded like one. He couldn't be sure. It could have been the wind curling under the tent's rainfly, except there was no wind. The air was still that night, dead still. He held his breath. Max was bristling beside the door, tail down, shoulders tense, still growling. Then, right beside David's head, just outside the tent wall, came a sound that made every hair on his body lift. Teeth. Not a bite or a bark. No animal snarl. Just the sound of teeth. Chattering. Chomping hard. Ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. The sound was so close, David thought that it might bite his ear. That's when Max exploded, lunging forward, barking ferociously, claws ripping at the nylon flap. Something screamed. Or maybe not a scream exactly, but a sharp exhale, a hiss of surprise. And then came the violent thrash of something heavy crashing back into the brush, cracking branches, moving away from his camp. Then silence. He grabbed Max's collar, heart jackhammering. They sat there for a while in the dark, man and dog, both of them alert, listening. Nothing came back, but neither of them slept. Dawn came slowly. Eventually, the tent's thin walls began to lighten. Birds chirped in the trees around the campsite. Finally, David found the courage to unzip the tent and step outside. The ground appeared untouched at first. But then he saw the prints, bare footprints, sort of. They looked human, except they were wrong, longer, and each toe ended in a sharp gouge. Claws, thought David. But far worse were the handprints, inches from his tent, pressed deep into the loam as though something heavy had been crouching there beside him. They looked like hands, but the fingers were too long, unnaturally jointed. 5 of them, but the pinky was curled far away from the others, like a hook. David didn't bother eating breakfast. He packed in under 10 minutes, strapped Max's gear without a word, and started moving. Fast. He hiked 13 miles that day. He didn't stop to admire the foliage or take pictures. He walked hard, often glancing behind him more than ahead. Max stayed close to his side, silent and watchful. He made it to Sunapee before nightfall. After he got home, he posted a few photos of the waterfalls and flowers that he'd seen, old cellar holes. Max sitting by a pond, the kind of shots people liked. But about the second night, he told almost no one. The few close friends who heard his tale believed he'd dreamed it, or that it must have been a woodchuck or some other woodland creature that he'd heard that night. And the handprints? The long clawed feet? Probably left by another camper, they guessed. Or a bear. Who knows? In time, David stopped mentioning it at all. But he hasn't hiked or camped out in New Hampshire's forests since. He keeps to his house now, safe within its walls with deadbolts locked, and Max stretched out beside him on the floor, because the wilderness is old and dark, darker than most people realize. And the things that wander it have teeth. Just pray you never hear them.